Well, a good Memorial Day Monday to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in here for a look at your extended forecast. First and foremost, hopefully many of you are having good, safe fun in this three-day weekend that kind of marks the unofficial start of summer, especially here in Central Georgia, where we've already seen the 90s. So you definitely know it feels like summer outside. But also let us not forget those who have fallen and made that ultimate sacrifice so we can live these blessed lives that we do and we can enjoy these festivities on this three-day weekend with our friends and family. So obviously the real reason for the day off today, I'm remembering all of those who gave their lives for our freedom. But now taking a look at what's ahead for your weather, it hasn't been the best start to your Memorial Day Monday. You probably got awoken by a few rumbles of thunder, maybe even saw some flashes of lightning through your window. Here's where your satellite and radar does currently stand. Nothing except a few sprinkles farther up to the north and the northwest here in Central Georgia, close to the I-75 corridor. But you did see this good clump of rain as it does continue its path into South Carolina. Let's move this back over here so you can see myself on the screen. And let's flash it back to the last 6 hours. That should cover it right there. And if I can drag it all the way back here, just to give you guys a glimpse of what the morning did entail. And it was a story of this. This was around 5 a.m., so right around when our morning show started. We got a good line of some heavy rain, that leading edge of all of this rain as it moved in from Alabama over to the west. A good amount of scattered lightning in the picture as well, even some clusters of that lightning together. But take a look at what happened as this line did move through Central Georgia. Didn't necessarily lose its steam immediately. You can see that it's still holding together good organization pretty close to the 6 a.m. hour, but then that's when you finally start to see that dark red color break apart, at least at the front of this line, and what's left is a lot steadier rain, even still a few flashes of lightning out there. And then as we go all the way past 7 a.m., close to 8 a.m., you can see how quick this fizzled out, transitioning from those oranges, those reds, those yellows into mainly just a green color and just a good cluster of some light showers. And then it eventually did make its way out. And now what's left is just a couple of sprinkles up to the north and the northwest. Still predominantly cloudy skies as we do head close to the 11 a.m. hour. Still, right now, all the way until we get to about 3 p.m. is still looking like a good window for outdoor plans. Maybe many of you have family in town. Now is going to be a good time to go ahead and hit the road. I know there's still going to be a little bit wet, but it's going to be better than what is in store for later on this afternoon. So this has kind of marked the third day in a row of some active weather. We had a level 1 risk for severe weather on Saturday. That continued yesterday, and that does continue for today, not only for the morning hours, however, it will continue for the evening, maybe into the nighttime hours. So let's take a look at some of the rainfall totals so far. It looks like a good cluster of rain up here around Lake Oconee, northern Hancock County. They got above the inch mark, maybe close to about 1.5 inches of rain. Most areas find themselves in this blue, whether it's dark or whether it's light, that's still going to be below the inch mark. So some areas got maybe about 1/2 inch of rain, like Milledgeville and Gray up here in downtown Macon. About 0.8 inches, so closer to the inch mark up near Monticello. Around the Forsyth area, actually some totals got really close to about 2 inches over the last 2 days. So that's definitely a good amount of rainfall, not in too short of a time period, giving you an idea of how fast these systems that have brought some thunderstorms have moved through and how quick they have decided to kind of fizzle out, because this area is left virtually without much rain whatsoever. Only about 1/4 inch of rain in areas like Irwinton over to Sandersville, maybe only a trace of rain down in Wrightsville, but then we'll take it down to our southern half. And you can see our southern counties, they haven't been able to find rain really whatsoever. There are some isolated areas that did get above the inch mark up here in northern Macon County, kind of on the line between Macon and Peach County. Over here in Butler, that also tallied somewhere around 1 inch, maybe 1.5 inches of rain. But most areas down in our far south, Eastman, maybe just west of Abbeville, around the Rochelle area, just northeast of Alamo, these areas that you don't see any shade over them, McRae and Alamo, they haven't recorded any rain whatsoever over the last 2 days. So we've been forecasting these scattered showers, scattered storms that have been coming through kind of at random times of the day, but more so the overnight into early morning hours. McRae and Alamo are probably saying, what are you talking about? We haven't seen anything in the way of rain the last 2 days. But just because you're left out of all of the rain doesn't mean that you aren't going to get any over the next couple of days. We're still right smack dab in the middle of a dreary period as we head into this last full week of May and transition into the month of June by the time we get to next Sunday. So we'll talk about what's ahead and why this is happening. Why are we continuing to get rain chances each and every day? I know it's not the most opportune. Many of you heading out for summer break and wanting to enjoy all the fun summer plans that you can during the day. Still got to be on the lookout when the weather does get a bit messy outside each and every day. So that's the main headline. On and off showers and storms. Some of those storms, they can be strong, they can be severe, although we haven't seen the level 1 play out over the last 3 days, indicating that we could see a strong or a severe storm. It's been happening all around us, just hasn't quite made its way and come to fruition in central Georgia yet. The good news with this, it's on and off, so that means there will be off periods, and actually most of the days and most of the afternoons are trending relatively dry. But once we go into the evening and nighttime hours, that could even roll around to the early morning hours. They are looking a bit stormy, so we'll go over the latest timing of our rain chances from what FutureView does say. I will say Memorial Day today itself kind of looks like one of the wetter days as we head into the afternoon and evening hours, maybe a little bit earlier than the rain chances pop up for Tuesday and Wednesday. The rain chances will hang around like we were talking about all the way until we get into Friday night. And then as we head into the weekend, there's finally some good news, a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. So be sure you stay tuned through the whole forecast that I do have, and so you can see what's at the end of your 7-day forecast. Cloudy skies right now over downtown Macon. That's the story across all of our sky cams. We're still looking at getting some breaks in this cloud cover, and that will contribute to a warm up as we head to just past lunchtime into about 2-3 o'clock. But things start to get a little bit gloomier as we head past that time frame, and you'll see what FutureView has to say about that in just 1 second. Temperatures are a little bit warmer than what we started out with. There is some clearing in cloud cover down to our far south, so that's why you're seeing 77, 78, 79s in areas like Unadilla, Cordele, down to Rochelle and Americus. But the farther north that you are, you still have the cloud cover present. Been very reluctant to get out of the 60s so far this morning. Monticello and Thomaston finally hitting that 7-0 mark. Take a look at your dew points. This is something we're probably going to start incorporating into the forecast each and every day. You've seen us use it a lot so far, and this is a good tracker for how much humidity is in place. So number one, we show you these dew point temperatures, and obviously they are pretty close to the temperatures right now, what they actually are. So that kind of gives you your humidity percentage. When you have a temperature and a dew point temperature that are exactly the same, that's near 100% relative humidity. But also we have the scale up here that we like to go by. So you'll see areas and some shades of no color whatsoever. That's going to indicate some dry air. But once you get up into the light green, that's a noticeable humidity, but it's not as bad as it could be. Once you get really into the thick of summer, you'll start to see this dark green color a lot more frequently. And we see shades of that darker green scattered across all of central Georgia. So once you get that dark green color, that's going to indicate your dew point temperatures of 70 degrees or higher. Now, once you get into the mid and upper 70s, that really plays a role on that feels like number. But temperatures below that 70-degree mark are going to fall in this light green shade that you see across Houston County, Twiggs County, down to Bleckley, southern Lawrence County. So that's kind of a good guide to telling us how humid it is. And once you kind of get up into the 70s, each degree increase that you get, it's kind of exponential for what that feels like temperature is. The difference between a dew point temperature of 77 and 78 degrees for that feels like number is going to actually be probably 2 or 3 degrees, and it continues to get exponentially higher, just showing you the role that the moisture in the atmosphere can play on these numbers, which we also refer to as the heat indices. So the feels like temperatures are pretty accurate of what the actual temperatures are so far, except down to the south. So you can see some areas are already feeling like 80 degrees, Cordele, Rochelle, Unadilla, down to McRae, over to Americus. So giving you an idea that they are seeing a bit of sunshine, some clearing in that cloud cover, and with the humidity present, it does start to make those temperatures feel a little bit warmer because we didn't have any temperature values that were above the 80-degree mark, but feels like numbers, we have a handful down in our southern corridor. So winds and wind gusts, they are calm right now, and this is something we'll talk about too, especially with some of these systems, these organized lines of thunderstorms that will be moving in. That's when you're going to start to see most of your gusty winds. None of the next couple of days really look windy whatsoever. It's just when those waves of active weather start to move in is when we look at getting a little bit of an uptick in those winds and those wind gusts. So let's take a look at your surface map. What is causing this? Well, it is our best friend, the stationary boundary. This is what happened probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago. We had a boundary that stalled just to the north of us. However, we still got plenty of rain chances, even if that boundary was stalled north of us. Now it's kind of stalled smack dab in the middle of central Georgia. So number one, when a boundary does stall like this, it does kind of act as a bit of an axis for rain. So you're going to see rain pop up around where that actual boundary is. There's a lot of lift associated with the stationary boundary, so that's going to kind of be a forcing mechanism for lifting all of that surface moisture that we still have available. And we are going to start to see little lines and organized bows of thunderstorms coming from west to east. Those are going to be what we call MCSs, or mesoscale convective systems. It's basically just a fancy term for an organized line of thunderstorms, some of which can bow out. And what we've been talking about, that bowing indicates some really gusty winds associated with some of these thunderstorms. But what we're going to continue to monitor are these low pressure centers over here to the kind of western edge of this stationary boundary. Right now, the centers of low pressure are back over into central Texas, southern Oklahoma. Those are going to eventually kick into gear, and they are going to kind of ride the axis of the stationary boundary. And eventually, we will look at a cold front to start to form, and it will drape from the south of one of those. But until it does that, it's still just looking like a picture of really messy weather, on again, off again rain. And it's also going to keep our warm, moist air that we have in place currently in place throughout the entire work week until that cold front does drive through and finally does usher in some cooler and drier air, which I promise is coming. However, we have a couple days to get through before we do get there. So taking a look at yesterday's almanac, we hit a high temperature of about 82 degrees. Well, not about, that is exactly what our high temperature was yesterday. Didn't really make it near average whatsoever. That morning low temperature is probably going to hover above average just like it did yesterday for many days over the course of the next 5 to 6 days, because we're going to have a lot of clouds present at the very least during that time when the sun is going to rise. And the other side of that is, of course, it's going to block our beautiful sunrise. But take a look at your records. 99 back in 2019, and then 1979, 49 degrees. Actually, it's 99. I definitely think I do remember that because it's around the time I graduated high school back in 2019. And I do remember my high school graduation was quite swampy and it was very, very warm. So we got just shy of about 0.2 of an inch of rain yesterday at Middle Georgia Regional Airport. Any little bit that we can get is going to do very good for keeping this number above average, keeping the plus in front of this number. So we're hovering about 0.35 hundredths of an inch above average, above where we should be this time of year in terms of all the rain we've received from January 1st, now here into May 26. Sunrise yesterday was at 6:30, sunset at 8:33. That sunset will continue to get later for about another month's time until we hit that longest day of the year, the first day of the season of summer, and that sunrise will also continue to get a little bit earlier. But then after that, we're going to look at the days getting a little bit shorter each and every day. And then of course we have the time change once we get well into the fall, and that's going to really mess up those sunrise and sunset times. But there's a long way to go before we start talking about that. Just know that these days are going to continue to be longer and longer. This is the time period, of course, when the weather does coordinate, that you want to make the most of your time outside, because we will have the most daylight hours this time of year as opposed to any other time of the year. So talking about our rainfall, where do we stand in the month of May? Well, we've been in the very wet period for quite some time, and we still find ourselves on the upper end of that box right there. Even after just only about 0.2 of an inch of rain, we actually didn't record any rain the 3 days prior to that. Last time we got rain was on May 21st, and that was also only about 0.2 of an inch. So far, when you add up all of these days of rain that has been recorded at Middle Georgia Regional Airport, of course, some local areas have received some severe thunderstorms that have trained over the same area, and they've gotten nearly double this number over the course of maybe about 2 or 3 days, probably. But total this month so far, about 5 inches of rain, so 4.80 inches of rain. You can see the average rainfall that we receive in the month of May all time is just over 2.5 inches. So we beat that a long time ago, probably this one day, or these 2 days actually, where we got over an inch of rain, even over an inch and a half of rain. Haven't really had much to come by since, but we did have one day that was on May 18th that we did receive nearly an inch of rain. So all these numbers added up do combine to nearly 5 inches of rain so far in the month, which is well above average, but it is still nowhere near this record set back in 1957. Almost 12 inches of rain back maybe some 70 years ago in the month of May. So thankfully we're not dealing with that. That would have a lot of flash flood implications and river flood warnings. So we're kind of getting that good in-between area. Yes, the weather hasn't really been the most conducive for outdoor plans, but we have had our fair share of afternoons that have trended relatively dry, and the rain has had the timing, at least of the last couple of days, of coming in the overnight and early morning hours. But if we were to receive a lot of heavy rainfall, get a lot closer to that record number, then that would definitely have some implications for keeping our water levels high. And we're hitting that in-between period where we're getting the rain, but we're not having to deal with any of those high water levels at the surface. So take a look at your Memorial Day forecast for today. Morning rain in the form of showers and storms was the story. Like I said, probably got awoken by maybe a rumble of thunder or two, but we didn't have anything in the way of severe warnings. Some of those thunderstorms were strong as they moved into our westernmost counties, but then that line began to steadily weaken a little bit later than the models were anticipating, but it still eventually did weaken. And now we're setting up for a mostly dry day, if you consider the day maybe about a period of 5 or 6 hours. Not really going to do much in the way of rain from now all the way until we get to about 3, maybe 4 o'clock. And it is looking like a pretty wet evening ahead, maybe into the nighttime hours. We'll go over the latest model runs and see what FutureView has to say about that. We are going to have a westerly wind today, maybe about 5 miles per hour, very steady, maybe a gust up to about 15 miles per hour, but you will see some gusts that are going to be greater than that. Of course, if you do encounter some strong or severe thunderstorms, that of course gusty winds is going to be one of the impacts that we do outline with those. I think the very upper end of the scale, we climbed just above average and just shy of that 90-degree mark, maybe about 89 degrees for a high temperature today. That's going to be if you get the most out of the amounts of sunshine that can be present throughout the late morning into the early afternoon hours. Most areas are probably going to fall below this number because the clouds will build in, or you'll even get some showers rolling through your area, and that rain-cooled air is actually going to bump your temperatures down somewhere into the 70s more than likely. So let's talk about the heat index today. We do have that humidity back in the forecast that I was referring to. So this is hinting at Macon here, probably going to receive maybe a high temperature in the low 80s. But you can still see the heat index has us feeling like temperatures near that forecasted high that I do have, showing you the role that humidity is playing today and will play throughout this week and the warmer months of the year, all the way until we probably get sometime in September, maybe even into October, and then we can start throwing that dew points map out the window because it is going to be a relatively dry period of the year. And then as we go into the nighttime hours, it is still going to feel humid. However, the temperatures will feel a little bit better, so it's not going to really feel blistering warm necessarily, somewhere near the 90-degree mark, but we have seen this graphic go all the way upwards of 100, 105, maybe even 110 degrees. So thankfully we're not dealing with any temperatures like that. We had a good stretch of the 90s, however, not really dealing with that over the course of the next week at least, but we very well could welcome back the 90s as we head into the first official week of June next week. So here's where your day one storm outlook does stand. This started at 8 a.m. this morning. That was about the time that most of the rain had already fizzled out and really weakened in nature. So now we're looking at all these systems that are continuing to pop up for the rest of your Memorial Day Monday to have severe weather implications all over really the southern belt of states in the United States. You can see that there's a level 3 and then eventually a level 2 back over here in Texas, stretching into Louisiana is that level 2. But look at the shape of this risk right here. Is this not like right there where that stationary boundary I drew was? You can really see that that stationary boundary is going to really fall like smack dab in the middle of the shaded risk, and it goes all the way off the eastern coast of the United States. Maybe areas like Jacksonville included in that level 1 risk, areas like Charleston, getting up to Hilton Head, Savannah on the Atlantic coast of Georgia and South Carolina. But not only is that's going to be present for central Georgia just today. We'll talk about tomorrow and Wednesday as well. But I do want to highlight the potential threats. This really essentially just means that you're going to see maybe a strong storm or a severe storm that is going to have some gusty and maybe even damaging winds and some small hail, maybe even some medium to large size hail, depending how severe that thunderstorm is, maybe getting up to the inch in diameter mark. That would be something that could classify a severe storm right there without the gusty winds. But a reminder that the severe thunderstorm criteria, 58 plus mile per hour winds, or you have to have hail that is at least 1 inch in diameter. If you have one or two, or either or of those things, or if you even have both, that's what gives the thunderstorm the severe criteria. Anything below those thresholds is going to get a special weather statement or no statement whatsoever, and we've seen our fair share of those special weather statements very recently. Let's go to your day 2 storm outlook for your Tuesday, and it is a rinse and repeat. So same potential threats, gusty winds and some small hail, and some of those gusty winds could be damaging. However, all of central Georgia included in a level 1 out of 5 risk. And this pattern does continue for your Wednesday. The same potential threats are going to be outlined, but this will mark, I think, 5 days in a row that all of central Georgia has been included in some kind of severe weather risk. I think we might have even had a level 2 over yesterday or Saturday that clipped our westernmost counties. So we'll continue to see if this trend continues for the day 3 tomorrow, which would be Thursday, and on into Friday, which I very well think it could be. That would make it a stretch of 7 straight days with some sort of severe weather outlook. But once again, take it with a grain of salt. This just means that you could see a stronger severe storm with those potential threats. And it's really not out of season anymore now that we're into late May, almost into the month of June, when we know we have warm temperatures, we have humidity. So we're going to start to get thunderstorms a lot more frequently here in the summertime months. So let's take it through FutureView. Forgot to throw some pause points on there, but you'll kind of get a glimpse of what I was talking about. From now all the way until we get into about 2 to 3 o'clock is going to be a good window to be outside. Any rain that pops up between now and then, probably going to be fairly light in nature, but then we start to see some yellows, some oranges, some reds pop up. And the interesting thing with this is all of this rain is going to continue to pop up, have a pretty scattered organization to it. But this continues to change from model run to model run, so what I was actually going to go on thought process-wise with that is relevant now talking about this. Just go ahead and understand FutureView is going to change between each model run. So just know what time periods that you are seeing the potential for at least rain, maybe even some thunderstorms pop up. But this goes all the way to 9 p.m. later tonight, and then we see another line of storms approaching from the west. This timing is going into about midnight tonight, so this would be a little bit earlier than the line of storms that moved in earlier this morning. So the earlier that you do get a system move through, it's going to have more to work with in terms of some slightly warmer temperatures, and it's also going to have that humidity virtually nonstop as it does move through. So if this scenario plays out, this line is still going to move in and pretty robust. It's going to have gusty winds. You saw plenty of reds and dark reds within that line. But then they steadily fizzle out as we go into that coolest portion of the day, probably about 5 to 8 a.m., and then we get into sunrise, and then we continue to heat back up. So we could be looking at a window of widespread showers and storms this afternoon into the evening hours, and we also could be looking at it again during those overnight hours, mainly into very, very early tomorrow morning before it starts to fizzle out the farther along into the morning that we get. So let's go through Tuesday. What's in store for the afternoon? Mostly dry morning, and then after that, around 2, 3 o'clock, we see more rain kind of popping up virtually out of nowhere. We call it pop-up because, number one, that's what it does here on our models. It pops up out of nowhere. But think of it as more of a kernel that you are trying to pop in terms of popcorn. Once you get enough heat and you get all the sufficient ingredients, that kernel does pop out, and that's essentially the exact same process that we are looking at for these showers and maybe even some storms. Then we look at another line of rain approaching from the west. These are going to be these MCSs, these lines of thunderstorms that are approaching from west to east. It looks like we have the potential for rain once again Tuesday afternoon, but also late Tuesday evening into the overnight hours. And the trend I'm seeing with these lines, these MCSs, they're trending a little bit earlier and a little bit earlier each and every day. So this one Tuesday night into early Wednesday morning could probably be the most robust and maybe the strongest out of all of them. But the good news is it should clear out by the late morning hours, maybe right there around sunrise. Hopefully give us a good image of the sunrise for a change. And then we go into Wednesday afternoon, which is actually trending pretty dry. That's one thing I have seen consistent with this model, the graph model, that Wednesday does look to be fairly dry until once again we get into the late evening and overnight hours. However, this isn't looking near as organized as the other two systems that we just talked about, but I think the potential for seeing rain on Wednesday is more so going to be the late evening into the nighttime hours as well, and that'll take us all the way through as far as our short range models, these high resolution models do go. So we'll pick up what the long-range models do say after we go over a few things. Number one, we'll talk about the wind gusts, and we will see that the winds are going to get gustier in local places. So this is going to be where you do see some of these lines and organized systems of thunderstorms maybe popping up. So you will see as we go into maybe the overnight hours tonight, we see these lines and we'll start to see some very thin shades of red, and that's on that leading edge of any of this rain that does continue to move through. And it gives you a good depiction of when those systems are going to move through. But this is also according to this model run that I did just show you, that FutureView model run. So it may not go exactly according to plan because this time of year it has a really tough time in terms of resolving what's actually going to happen. But here's where the wind gusts go all the way to 10 p.m. and then 1 a.m. on Thursday. Once again, seeing where those isolated spots of some gusty winds are going to be within these systems of thunderstorms. So one thing that's helping these out is going to be that humidity. Like I said, it's going to have surface moisture. We're right along a stationary boundary. What's all that lift going to lift? It's going to lift all the surface moisture that we do have available. So how long does the humidity stay around somewhat humid levels? I would say definitely not very, very muggy, because we know these dew point temperatures can get up into the upper 70s, even flirt with 80 degrees, and that's very, very swampy stuff. However, it does look like they are going to hang at virtually the same levels all the way until we get into Friday. Then Friday, we'll actually look at maybe that cold front we were talking about to finally pass through and usher in some slightly drier and some slightly cooler air. Don't necessarily know about slightly cooler this time of year. Cooler is very relative, but it may keep our temperatures in the low 80s as opposed to the upper 80s and borderline into the 90s. But the lower humidity looks to stick around for the weekend ahead. That's one indication that the weekend could be shaping up to be a pretty nice one. And I know we keep forecasting a nice weekend and then the forecast keeps changing. We're going to keep our fingers crossed that it does trend nice and dry as we go into Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But long-range models are still hinting at the possibility of some of these systems moving from west to east. However, you can see clearing back over here to the west, so that's going to indicate that most of this is driven well ahead of that cold front. And then we go into your Friday, more so afternoon, maybe lingering a little bit into the evening hours. But then after that, take a look at what happens. Finally pushing out, and that is going to usher in that drier air I was talking about. That's going to lead to some hopefully clear conditions for most of your Saturday. Doesn't look like we have anything in the way of rain, besides the potential for maybe some wraparound rain. This is all going to be courtesy of that low pressure center we were talking about on the stationary boundary. So the cold front is going to be what actually moves through. However, it's going to be attached on the southern end of that low pressure center, and that's going to move up to the northeast. Well, anywhere around that low pressure center, even areas fairly far away, a couple states away, can receive that wraparound circulation, and there's a little bit of moisture to work with. However, it does look like we are going to trend mostly dry as it does stand right now as we go into your Saturday, your Sunday, and as we pick it up this time next week. Hopefully we get a stretch of 3 days without any rain chances before maybe we get into that typical summertime pattern. We get into the 90s, we have humidity back in the forecast, but it's a lot more scattered in nature, the rain activity that you will see. It's more likely than not during this peak summertime months where we have a 20% on each and every day of the 7-day forecast that you won't receive any rain as opposed to receiving it. So your afternoon highs are going to fluctuate. It's all going to be dependent on that cloud cover and if that rain gets to you. This is once again the upper end of the scale, but it does look like Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday are actually trending a couple degrees below what Monday, today, and Wednesday are trending at. But the theme is we are probably going to fall below average each and every day. You see average is 88 degrees this time of year, probably going to bump up to 89 degrees either tomorrow or Wednesday. We've been at 88 degrees for a couple of days now. So your morning lows, the good news is not going to have a chill in the air. We had a couple days like that last week where temperatures got down into the mid, maybe even the low 50s. Saturday morning was actually, in fact, a bit of a chilly one, but still it does warm up fairly quick. The morning lows are still looking to hover somewhere in the mid, maybe the low 60s, right there around average, maybe a degree 2 or 3 warmer. And if you keep the cloud cover present, that's really going to help trap that surface heat that you receive during the day. And that's going to keep your temperatures even a little bit warmer than some of these numbers do stand. For the high temperature, I like to go on the highest end of the scale, but for the lowest temperature, I like to go on the lower end of the scale. Anything a little bit warmer or a little bit cooler if we're talking about high temperatures, obviously not a complaint whatsoever as we get into this time period. So here's your 7-day forecast for your Memorial Day Monday. Still about a 60% chance of seeing some scattered showers, some scattered thunderstorms throughout the rest of today. Once again, that same chance rather is going to go for Tuesday as well, mainly during the overnight hours. I think it will be after you have gone to sleep. And then we go into Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Kept a 40% chance of a shower or storm on each and every day. These will probably fluctuate as we get a better view on the short range models. And then heading into the weekend, after we get through Friday evening, I'm hoping, maybe even the tail end of Friday night can actually trend pretty dry too. Saturday and Sunday are shaping up to be dry days as that drier air does usher in behind the cold front we were talking about, and we will see a warm up eventually, but we'll keep temperatures pretty pleasant for Friday and Saturday and even for Sunday. Obviously the upper 80s going to feel pretty warm outside, but bringing in the month of June with below 90-degree temperatures and no rain chances, that's actually a pretty big win, I must say so. I wouldn't doubt it that the 90s are back next week, though. We were looking at another clear day past this day on the 7-day forecast for Monday. So with a warming trend expected, I imagine the 90s are going to become pretty normal, but just enjoy the 80s for one last week. We'll see some fluctuation, and we'll still have some high temperatures in the 80s, depending on what's happening with weather systems, if we have a lot of clouds and a lot of rain like I was talking about. But as it does stand, it's going to be a pretty wet work week. However, there will be dry periods. I was emphasizing the on and the off. There are going to be off periods, so those off periods, take full advantage of them. Make sure that you're planning your outdoor plans accordingly and keeping a close eye on the radar, on the skies, making sure that you have a way to head indoors pretty quickly if you do see the weather getting messy and getting very close to you. But as it does stand, we still have these rain chances each and every day. I'm hoping that they can happen during the overnight into early morning hours because, number one, they would just continue to weaken as they move through. Not going to have as much to work with as it would during peak heating during the afternoon and early evening hours. And number two, also many of you are already just going to be asleep. If we have anything pop up in terms of a severe warning or not, then of course we'll be here and we'll be doing coverage for it. That's something we've continued to remain staffed with over the course of the last 3 days, making sure that we're handing off overnight, we'll hand off in the afternoons. So we'll be continuing to do that to make sure that we're not caught off guard, you're not caught off guard with any of the possibilities of a severe thunderstorm warning or such. But once again, if you do get a severe thunderstorm warning issued over the next couple of days, that's just something you want to remain inside for. You don't want to go out and try to go get some groceries. You don't want to go out and maybe go to the park, maybe plan a lake day or stay out on the lake if you are to get any of those severe thunderstorm warnings. Something you just want to ride out from the safety of indoors. Stay updated with our coverage, and the good news is hopefully they will be pretty short-lived. All those systems moving through have pretty fast motion, so I think it will be over pretty quick, maybe only about 20 to 30 minutes, and then the heaviest is past you. You just got to really wait for some of those rumbles of thunders to get off in the distance, because when thunder roars, you need to go indoors. That means you are close enough to get struck by lightning, and with everyone having all these outdoor activities and near bodies of water, near the pool, near the lake, going to the community pool, whatever it may be, it's not a safe place to be when you do hear lightning striking in the way of thunder. And something else I wanted to leave you with, if you haven't caught it yet, The 13 WMAZ weather team, along with our hardworking producers and managers, we've been working over the past month to get a hurricane season special ready for you because June 1st is going to be on Sunday. Not only is it the first day of a new month, not only is it the start of meteorological summer, but it is the official start of hurricane season. So we've gone out, we've looked at damage, we've looked at some of the tools that we use when covering these storms, and we put a whole montage together where we've kind of sat down, we've talked with each other about Helene, about what's in store for this year. So if you want to know all the information that you need to know ahead of the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season, you can find it on 13 WMAZ Plus. Once again, download on your Roku, Fire TV, or Apple TV. But if you're watching me on here, then you probably already have your 13 WMAZ Plus app, so you can go down and scroll down to kind of that watch carousel that we do have on the bottom of any of these live streams that we currently have, and you can find it under this 2025 hurricane season special. It's definitely something good to give you all the information that you need as we head into tropic season. But the good news is, just because June 1st is the start of hurricane season doesn't mean we're going to start spitting out storms every couple of days and having to look at them. The first month and a half is typically pretty slow time for hurricane season. It's once we get into the end of July all the way into sometime in early October, that's really where we start to get these storms a lot more frequently. That's when we'll be doing a lot more tropics updates. Even if it's just a fish storm, we'll be keeping you updated throughout all the names of this 2025 hurricane season. And of course, if it's going to have implications and impacts here close to home, then we will be keeping you updated a lot more frequently. And that's something we are going to have to add to our daily routine once again, just making sure that we stay updated on the National Hurricane Center outlook, along with any of the storms that are out and brewing. But this is a great way to go ahead and get all the information that you need to know ahead of the hurricane season, something we all work very hard on, and I think you all will enjoy it very much. So thank you for tuning in for this Memorial Day edition of your extended forecast. Once again, we're back here at 10:30 tomorrow to give you any updates with the forecast. Maybe we can get this dreary stretch out of here a little bit sooner as opposed to later, but just keep an eye on the radar. And like I said, maximize those times and those periods of dry weather as we head throughout the work week, and then something to look forward to with hopefully a dry weekend. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow.